You said no and you meant it. 10 minutes later, you were doing the thing anyway. Not because they convinced you, not because you changed your mind. You changed your answer because of something you felt in your chest. You couldn't make it stop until you said yes. Someone said something to you, something quiet, not aggressive, not threatening. They gave you a line like, "I guess I'll just have to figure it out myself." And that's all it took. That wasn't persuasion, that was guilt. And you probably didn't even call it that. You called it being considerate, being flexible, being a good person. Guilt is the most effective manipulation tool that exists, not because it's the most aggressive, because it doesn't feel like manipulation at all. It feels like you failed someone. And to understand why it works so well, you have to understand why anger doesn't. When someone gets angry at you, you know what's happening. Your body tells you. Your heart rate goes up, your shoulders tighten, you feel the threat. Something in you prepares to respond, fight or leave. Either way, you're oriented. You know where the pressure's coming from. Anger gives you a target. You can see it. You can name it. You can decide whether it's justified, and even if you freeze in the moment, you walk away knowing exactly what happened. They got angry, and it wasn't okay. There's no confusion, there's no self-doubt. And here's the part that matters the most. Anger is expensive for the person that's using it. It burns credibility. Other people notice. It creates witnesses. It gives you evidence. This person is unreasonable. This person can't control themselves. Most people have a limit for how much anger they'll tolerate from one person. The first time, you might excuse it. The second, you're cautious. And by the third time, you've made a decision about who they are. Anger has a shelf life. It stops working the more someone uses it. Anger announces itself. Anything that announces itself can be defended against. Now imagine someone who never raises their voice, who never slams the door or sends an angry text. Someone who just says quietly, "I guess I'll have to figure it out myself." That person just did something far more effective than yelling, and you didn't even register it as pressure. Here's what actually happened inside of your head. Guilt doesn't trigger your defenses. That's the whole point. When someone makes you feel guilty, you don't feel attacked. You feel responsible. You don't think they're being unfair. You think maybe I'm being selfish. The shift is subtle, but it changes everything. You go from evaluating their request, is this reasonable? Do I have the capacity? Is this something I even want to do? To evaluating yourself. Am I a good person? Am I being fair? Am I the kind of person who abandons people? Once that shift happens, the original request doesn't matter anymore. You're not weighing a favor, you're defending your character. And you will almost always lose that fight because the standard is invisible. There's no clear bar to meet, there's just a feeling in your chest that won't go away until you say yes. Think about the last time someone said, "I just thought you'd be the kind of person who would help." You didn't hear a request, you heard a verdict. And your first instinct wasn't to evaluate whether helping made sense. Your first instinct was to prove the verdict wrong. That's not a conversation, that's a trap. And it works every time because you're the one building it. They just hand you the first piece. The person using guilt doesn't need you to agree with them. They don't need to win an argument. They just need you to feel bad enough that your no stops feeling like an option. And unlike anger, guilt leaves no evidence. There's nothing to point to, no raised voice, no harsh words. Just a quiet sentence and a weight that followed you home. But the reason it keeps working on you, the reason you fall for it again and again, isn't what you think. Here's why guilt works better than any other form of pressure. Anger asks you to submit. Guilt asks you to volunteer. That's the difference. And it's why guilt-based manipulation is almost always invisible, even to the person doing it. Most people who use guilt aren't sitting in a room planning on how to control you. They've learned through years of experience that expressing disappointment gets them exactly what they want. It's not a strategy they designed. It's a pattern that's worked. So they keep using it. That's what makes it so hard to confront. You can't call out something that doesn't look like an attack. If you say, "You're guilt-tripping me," they'll say, "I'm just telling you how I feel." And they might believe that. The line between expressing genuine emotion and weaponizing it is blurry, sometimes even to the person doing it. But the cost to you is concrete. Every time you override your own answer because of how someone made you feel, you teach yourself something. You learn that your no is negotiable, that your boundaries are suggestions, and the right amount of emotional pressure will always change your mind. And the people around you learn that too. You become the first phone call, the reliable one, the person who always comes through, not because you have more capacity than everyone else, but because you've shown that guilt works on you. You've proven that the door is unlocked. Think about who you'd call if you needed someone to say yes at the last minute. Now ask yourself, why is that person always available? It's not because they have fewer obligations. It's because they've been trained to put yours above theirs. And here's the part no one talks about. It doesn't just happen with one person. Once you've developed the pattern of responding to guilt, you carry it into every relationship. Your family knows it, your coworkers know it, and your friends know it. Not because they planned it together, but because the pattern is yours and it shows up everywhere you go. The exhaustion that follows isn't from helping. You've helped people before and felt fine. The exhaustion is from the gap between what you wanted to do and what you actually did do. That gap is where resentment lives, and it grows every time you say yes when you meant to say no. Over time, you'll stop trusting your own decisions, not because you're weak, but because you've been trained to believe that your answer is not final until the other person accepts it. And the worst part is, you start doing it to yourself. You don't even need the other person in the room anymore. You replay the conversation in advance. You imagine their disappointment, and you change your answer before they even ask, because you already know how the guilt will feel, and you'd rather avoid it than stand in it. Guilt works better than anger because anger gives you something to push against. Guilt gives you nothing. It just sits in your chest and waits for you to move. The first step isn't learning what to say. It's recognizing the shift when it happens. The moment the question in your head changes from, is this reasonable, to what kind of person says no to this, that's the mechanism, that's the test. And once you can see it, the pattern starts to lose its grip. This is just one mechanism, one pattern. There are 26 more in my book, and each one has a specific way in and a specific way to close it. That shift from should I help to am I a bad person, that's one entry point. You have a specific one. There's a free assessment on my website that identifies it. 4 minutes, 28 questions. Once you know which door is unlocked, every video on this channel hits different. Links to both are in the description. Next video, I'm going to show you why you're not actually bad at saying no. You were trained not to, and there's a big difference.